I'd like to call to order the regular formal meeting of the Iowa City City Council for February the 6th, 2018. Roll call, please.
Botchway.
Here.
Cole.
Here.
Mims.
Here.
Sully.
Here.
Taylor. Here. Thomas.
Here.
Throgmorton.
Here. Item 2, Student Leadership Awards. I wonder if Sadie Bodson and Marguerite Frank would come up. Where's that thing? Sadie? Marguerite? All right, so it's always great to be able to hand out these Student Leadership Awards. So what we're going to do tonight is hear you read your statements. I think we'll start with you, Marguerite, and then we'll hear from Sadie. And afterwards, I'll read the Student Leadership Award, and it has your names on it. I mean, each individual one does. So, Marguerite, would you begin, please?
Yep. Hello, I'm Marguerite Frank, and I'm in 6th grade at Longfellow Elementary. I believe my teacher, Mr. DePringer, picked me for this award for a few reasons. I am Student Council President at Longfellow. The Student Council organized fundraisers to help those in need, like people affected by the recent hurricane season. On a personal level, I baked cookies and donated the profits to organizations supporting the #MeToo cause and refugees. During the presidential election of 2016, I organized a fundraiser for Hillary Clinton with my friends and made $260 for her campaign. I believe deeply in social justice and try to speak out against racism and sexism when I can. I am very honored to have been chosen for this award. Thank you.
All right. Marguerite, I wonder if you could just go around here and sit here. I think you're prepared to be mayor.
That was a good platform.
Great, that's fabulous. Okay, so next, Sadie, you are next, so hold on. I'm going to make sure I have these things in order. Yeah, so Sadie Bodson, would you read your statement?
Hi, I'm Sadie Bodson, a 5th grader at Longfellow Elementary, and I have been nominated as an Outstanding Student of the Year. Today I will tell you some of the things I did to get this award. My family and I donate food to the Crisis Center, so families in need will have food. Also, at my Hebrew school, we have a fundraiser each year, and the money we get is donated to different cause. For example, last year we donated the money to the homeless shelter. This year we will donate to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I'm very glad to be part of this community and honored to get this award.
Fabulous. Very well done. So I'm really proud to be up here with 2 Longfellow students, partly because my 2 sons both went to Longfellow and graduated from Longfellow. Very exciting. Okay, so the award reads exactly the same thing for each of you except your names on your individual ones. Student Leadership Award. For your outstanding qualities of leadership within Longfellow Elementary, as well as the community, and for your sense of responsibility and helpfulness to others, we recognize Sadie and Marguerite. As an outstanding student leader, your community is proud of you. Presented by the Iowa City City Council, February 2018. All right, so Sadie, here's yours. Marguerite, here's yours. Well done. And I know your parents are right over here. Marguerite's right there, and Sadie's parents, there you are, parent. Bravo, you're doing a great job with your young daughters here. That's fabulous. Thank you so much. All right, so we're good to go. All right. Okay, we have 2 proclamations to read for tonight. I'm going to ask President or Mayor Pro Tem Pauline Taylor to read the first. I didn't have a chance to tell you this. It's about municipal home rule. So would you read this, Pauline?
City of Iowa City Proclamation. Whereas home rule is essential to effective and responsive municipal governance in Iowa and provides flexibility to make decisions at the local level where decisions are made closest to the people they impact and can be tailored to fit local conditions, needs, and concerns in order to better serve taxpayers. Whereas the City of Iowa City supports home rule and the powers it provides to make local decisions that best reflect the residents of our community. Whereas the citizens of Iowa approved the adoption of home rule in the Constitution of Iowa on November 5th, 1968. Whereas this is the 50th year of municipal home rule in Iowa. Whereas home rule continues to be vital to the health and prosperity of all cities in Iowa. Now, therefore, James Throgmorton, Mayor of Iowa City, does hereby recognize the 50th anniversary of municipal home rule in Iowa and proudly support its continued authority.
Is there anyone here to accept this proclamation?
Kelly said no.
All right, I don't see anyone. Thank you. Yeah. And we have one other proclamation. This is about Black History Month. I think I'll read this one. Whereas, since 1976, February has been designated as a month in which we celebrate the rich legacy of African Americans and their many contributions to this country. And whereas Iowa City can count among its past and present residents many African American leaders, educators, and social justice pioneers of state and national prominence, they include Frederick Duke Slater, a University of Iowa football player who went on to become a judge of the Superior Court of Cook County, Illinois, Philip G. Hubbard, a University of Iowa professor and administrator who was the first African American faculty member at the University of Iowa, the first African American administrator at any of Iowa's state universities, and the first African American vice president at a Big Ten university. And last but not least, Helen Lemmy and Elizabeth Betty Tate, both of whom were social and civic leaders who have had Iowa City Community Schools named after them. And whereas, in an effort to preserve African American history, the City of Iowa City recently received a grant from the National Park Service to preserve two homes: the Iowa Federation Home, located at 942 Iowa Avenue, and the Tate Arms Home, located at 914 South Dubuque Street. Both homes represent a time when the University of Iowa did not allow Black students to reside on campus, and the Black community here took it upon itself to provide places for Black students to live. And whereas the Iowa City Historic Preservation Commission is currently working towards getting these properties listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and thereby to solidify their importance as historic landmarks associated with the struggle to ensure housing equality for Black students in Iowa City. And whereas during Black History Month, all are encouraged to reflect on past successes and challenges and look to the future to continue to improve society so that we live up to the ideals of freedom, equality, and justice. Now, therefore, I, James A. Throgmorton, Mayor of Iowa City, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2018 to be Black History Month. So, Barbara, where are you? Could you come up and accept this? I said Barbara, it's Barbara Kutzko, so there you are. Good to see you again tonight.
Thank you so much, Mayor and the Iowa City City Council, for your proclamation in honor of Black History Month. Again, my name is Barbara Kutzko, and I am a member of the Human Rights Commission. And on behalf of the commission, I'm happy to be here and accept this proclamation. As a native of California, who now calls Iowa City home, I was very proud of our community when we pulled together and elected Mazahir Salih as our first Sudanese American woman as an elected official anywhere in the country. So it's something that we're very pleased about. But we've got a long way to go as a community. We still have a lot of work to do. We have made some strides, but in order to ensure that everyone in our community has a voice and thrives and survives and feels included, we've got much more work that needs to be done. So I hope that I challenge each of you tonight to ask yourselves, what can I do, or what can we do, both individually and collectively, to ensure that everyone in our community has a voice and experiences equal time and has a place to call home, as I have in these past 30-some years since I've been in Iowa City. So thank you again, and
All right, we can turn to item 4. We're going to consider adoption of the consent calendar as presented or amended, and we decided to pull item 4E2 out for separate consideration. Could I have a motion to do that, please?
Second.
Moved by Saleh, seconded by Botchway. Roll call, please.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Salih?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Yes.
I meant to note that there are 2 items in which we are setting public hearings. One is the item we pulled, which has to do with the pedestrian mall improvement project. And the second is item 4E1, which sets a public hearing on an ordinance rezoning a significant amount of land on property located south of I-80, west of Prairie du Chien Road. So some people might be watching and want to know that this particular rezoning is or proposed rezoning is going to have a public hearing about it. All right, so now we can move to separate consideration of item 4E2. This is, as I said, pedestrian mall improvements. This is a resolution setting a public hearing on February 20, 2018 on plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the construction of the pedestrian mall improvements project, directing city clerk to publish notice of said hearing, and directing the city engineer to place said plans on file for public inspection. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Saleh. Discussion. John, you wanted this?
Yeah, I had asked that we have this under separate consideration, and the reason was the costs, which are listed in the resolution, were different than the costs that we saw at the work session back on the 16th. So I just wanted to bring that to our and the community's attention and learn from staff. We did hear reasons why at the work session, but I would guess we could just quickly summarize those for those who did.
Sure. Well, again, as we talked about in the work session, the thrust of the project is really the underground elements below the Ped Mall. So we're looking at replacing old utility infrastructure and bringing in new infrastructure that does not exist right now. But as part of that, we'll be replacing the bricks and lighting and things of that nature as well. At your work session, you saw an estimated cost on a base bid of close to about $7.8 million, and you see that the revised cost estimate has dropped that to about $1 million. We discovered a few miscalculations in the previous cost opinion that we were working with. There's 2 primary drivers to that. One is there was some sales tax cost embedded in some of the estimates that were being provided, and we can back those out. The second is that there was a underestimation of how many of the limestone planter walls that we could reuse. So in other words, the previous cost cost opinion had us replacing the bulk of the limestone planter walls when our intention was to reuse as many of them as we can. So that brought the project cost down quite a bit. Of course, that's just a engineering estimate, and as you know from what's on your agenda tonight and previous items, the estimate is only an estimate, and we hope it's accurate. We hope the bids maybe come in below, but that number may jump back up when we see the bids.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mims?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes?
Botchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. All right, so item 5, community comment. This is for anything that anybody in the audience wants to bring up concerning any item that is not on the formal meeting agenda. Please come up, state your name, and take not more than 5 minutes, unless there are a large number of people who want to speak. Could you kind of wave your hand if you intend to speak? Okay, so not more than 5 minutes, please. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Joe Murphy from Iowa City, and I'm here to request that the city officially name the stage in the pedestrian mall the Dennis Jones stage. Dennis Jones ran a company called Brown Street Sound here in Iowa City for years, and he was the guy in the pedestrian mall hours before the show ended, hours after it ended, taking care of things. He, as far as I know, never turned down a charity that always didn't have money to pay him or almost nothing. He worked endless hours, and pretty much every musician in the state of Iowa knows who he is, cares who he is, and it would be a fitting tribute to him, a guy that sacrificed everything for musicians, to have the stage named after him. And that's really it, that there's nobody more deserving of it that's ever walked the streets of Iowa City. And what better place? We're already calling it the Dennis Jones stage, so we just want the city to officially recognize it as the Dennis Jones stage. And, really that's all there is to it. I'm not much of a diplomat, and I'm pretty to the point, so we'll just wait for you to say yes, and life will be perfect then. Oh, and some of you don't know who he is, and that's the biggest reason why it needs to be named for Dennis Jones, because you guys don't know who the guy is back there doing all the work while you're looking at the stage, and he was. Any questions from anyone I can answer or take care of?
Oh, but I can tell you we got quite a few emails concerning precisely this same point. Yeah.
Well, you really haven't gotten anything at all, because that was just off a little Facebook post I did with no publicity, no working at it at all. We can open the floodgates if we have to for you. So,
Good deal.
thank you for your consideration, and I'll be looking forward to coming back with somebody that knows him better than me to accept the naming of the stage for him.
Thanks a lot, Joe.
Thank you.
Good evening, Reverend Smith.
Good evening, Your Honor, City Council, and community members. I'm Pastor Smith. I'm the pastor of New Creations International Church, and I'm also the president of the Johnson County Interfaith Cluster. And before I get into my comments, I just wanted to introduce our organization to the council and city, and tell you just a short snippet about our vision and purpose. The Johnson County Interfaith Cluster our vision is to build a multicultural, faith-based community organization that advances justice for the residents of Johnson County as well as those who live beyond it. Our mission is that the members of the Johnson County Interfaith, with the support of Gamilio Network and the Covenant and our Covenant partners with Quad Cities Interfaith, we commit to a long-term productive collaboration that creates justice, especially racial and for economic and for racial and economic economic inequality for peoples and persons of color in the state and the region. So I wanted you to understand and get a good concept of who we are as I move forward. Our concern and the reason that I stand before you today is because of the hate propaganda that has been distributed in our city. And I believe, and I echo this. We had a public meeting on Friday, and I'm echoing this to the council too, that we are not safe. I don't believe that we are safe when we see this propaganda. The people of color are not safe. These things are these are preliminary intents to attack people of color. And I stand here before you today, and I represent a segment of the city that looks like me, that lives that works in the same places that you work, that goes to the same schools that you go to, and that enjoys life just as you all do. And when we see this hate propaganda, it is a danger to our livelihood. And we cannot have this overlooked, and we cannot be silent about what we see. Because silence means that you are complicit. Silence means you're complicit. That means that you may see a problem, but you won't do anything about it. And so I'm challenging this council. I'm challenging this council to do something about it. The mayor, the city manager, and the police chief have all have at our public meeting agreed to the demand, to our demands and our asks. And what I'm asking you is, I'm asking the council to support this effort. What was our demands? We wanted the mayor, the city council, the city manager, to initiate an FBI department investigation of the hate propaganda and those hate groups that are coming around the city of Iowa City. Because if we take it lightly, they're coming. And many of you have done your research. Many of the people around here have done their research, and we see that they are intentionally targeting the city of Iowa City. They've not only intentionally targeted the city of Iowa City, they've also intentionally targeted the Quad Cities. And so our ask was that there be an FBI investigation. Our second ask was that we wanted an assigned law enforcement officer to work with Johnson County Interfaith and the community to update us on the things that are going on around here, so that we can be assured that we're safe. The next thing we're asking is that you would share information concerning 8 groups in this area. We want the police. We want the police to share these things with us, so that we can understand and know the progress that is being set forth. And we as people of color need to know that we can be in this city and be safe. Now, I just heard that I stood here and heard you proclaim this Black History Month. But what would really make it a good proclamation is if you can stand for the black people and stand for the people of color that stay here. Well, proclamation is good, it's words, but it's your actions that make a difference. It is your actions. It is not you being complicit and sitting around and watching this thing happen, but it is for you to take action. And this is what we want to see. We want to see you take action. Our third demand was this, is that we want law enforcement to dedicate more resources to investigate hate crimes and to monitor internet traffic. These things will help us be safe. Being silent and being complicit will not help us be safe. So I'm asking, my ask for the city council is to support the mayor, support the city manager, support the police chief, and come up with a plan that keeps us safe. I understand it's hard because you don't look like me, except for two of you. And so you don't understand. You may not understand it like we understand it. But you got two in your camp, and you need to listen to them and listen to the people so that we can be safe.
Thank you, Tony. Good evening again, Sam.
I am Sam Massey, First Presbyterian Church here in Iowa City. As a member of Johnson County Interfaith Cluster JKIC, I am also a large white male. I am not afraid to be anywhere, ever. That includes China and Pakistan and Northern Ireland and Palestine, because I know that I rule the world. But I have friends who are afraid because of gender questions, who are afraid because of race, who are afraid for a variety of reasons. And some years ago, my conscience was pricked by Dr. King's letter from Birmingham jail because, frankly, I found him addressing me, right? Here's a guy, white liberal progressive, who has his act together because I am a white liberal progressive, and that by definition means I have my act together. But he said this, and I'm summarizing, he said it was not the KKKers, it was not the white citizens' councils, but it was white moderates, perhaps progressives like me in our day, who didn't like the time or who didn't like the tactics of King's political activism, that they were the ones who really stood in the way of justice for Dr. King and his movement. My experience in living in Charlottesville, Virginia, which you saw in the news this last year, as you saw the religious leadership, as you saw people who were friends of mine who were involved in that time and that place, I can assure you that in those circumstances, you had one or two choices. You could either say that there was peace where there is no peace, which is what a white progressive person could say, or you could admit that there really is no peace, that people are suffering and they're afraid of police stops and they're afraid of shopping in downtown stores. And my choice has been to listen to those who are very different than I am and to take their side as best I can. This is a wonderful town. When I moved from Charlottesville with all of its racial issues and came here, I thought I died and gone to heaven. And I still feel that way. When I look at the folks sitting here, I'm in a much better shape in your hands than I was in their hands back there. Trust me, I know this to be the case. But I also know to be the case that unless we really listen to people of color, unless we ask them to lead us, the rest of us, in political action, unless we submit and obey their vision of the beloved community, then you could have as many well-meaning white people in the room as you possibly can manage, and we still would be misguided and ineffective. This group of JKIC is made up of all types of people, but it's led by people who have a different perspective, a more oppressed perspective than the rest of us. And the rest of us bring our power and our tongues and our clear good looks to bear to be of support to them. I am one who wants to stand back, and I thinking you are the same, to allow truth to be spoken clearly to white privilege and the white power in which many of us share, and to hear their wisdom and to come alongside of it so that we can draw far closer to the beloved community that Dr. King has in mind. And frankly, I do believe in this council and the individual members of it, that although we'll have some struggles over time, that I do believe that we can collaborate together, JKIC and the City Council and many others, to make Iowa City truly the paradise that I've already begun to find it to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Good evening again.
Good evening. My name is Chitoka Webb, and I am a citizen, a resident of Iowa City. And I wanted to share with you all, the council, as people who are concerned about the members of the community and so forth. Just my own personal experience with being black. And I never knew it was a problem until something happened to me. And Pastor Smith was talking about the hate propaganda. And eventually, it affects us all. In 2016, I had done a silence fast, and a very, very dear friend of mine, a white gentleman in his 60s, very, very dear friend of mine. So he knew that I was on this silence fast. So basically a silence fast is when you don't talk and you just write things down and so forth. And so when I seen him, he asked me if I wanted to see a picture of a monkey. And my first thought was maybe he got a new pet. And he put a mirror in my face. And I had no idea that he saw me as a pet. Racism hurts. It's painful. Sexism hurts. It's painful. Ageism hurts. It's painful. And Muhammad Ali has a quote that says, if a man sees his life at 50 the same way he did at 20, then he has lost 30 years of his life. So we all have the power and the opportunity to change things. And I believe in Iowa City, and I believe that we can make change happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Chakota. Good evening, Raphael.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm really good. How about you?
I have to stick this or just leave it here?
Stick.
Okay, fine. Yeah, good evening, Council Member. I'm Rafael Moratay. I'm Director of the Center for Worker Justice. And tonight I'm wearing two hats. One is as a director, and another one is a member of the Interfaith Johnson County cluster. And I really appreciate you, the mayor, and the city manager, and the chief of police went to the center last Friday. And I appreciate your courage. But I'm here today to basically talk about what we saw more than a week ago, close to our home, actually. And Scott Park. My wife actually found this word in the park when she walking the dog. And, in the past, we always have been really careful there to walk. And now I told my wife, don't go anymore there, especially alone. Sometimes we send the kids with the dog and say, we don't go there. But beside the fear, my concern is like the Pastor Smith saying, right? The silence is complicity, right? And is my fear tonight, because if we don't see that graffiti there, how many days has passed? And a lot of people walk there, bike, and do exercise. Anybody notice and call the police or call the city to remove the graffiti? That's dangerous. So, and like I said before, right? I do believe this is a progressive city, but most important, but the title is a city of values. And I'm encouraged all the citizens to take care of that, to watch what the values is from the neighborhood and from us, because this should not be happening in our city. And I know, Mayor, that you will take care of this flyer coming to town. You're going to support us in every way that you can, and I know you have expressed your compromise. You were with us, and I know you will, and same Jeff and the Chief of Police, and I hope that we can get some results quickly. Thank you for support us.
Thank you, Rafael.
I have something far more mundane to talk about. Sorry. Well, maybe it's not that mundane. Good evening. Sorry. Mayor,
evening,
City
Nick.
Council
How are you?
members. So I want to once again talk to you all this week about, I guess you could say.
I'm sorry, could you introduce yourself, please, for all of us?
Nicholas Tyson.
Thank you.
Sorry, I thought I had said that. Apologies. I wanted to note that my colleagues and I in the Iowa City DSA really appreciate the opportunity to put together a public housing initiative. But there are a couple of things have come up in our research that give us a great deal of pause. To put it simply, it seems like most of the concessions that the city has extracted from local developers in terms of affordable housing are, well, put it frankly, terrible. To use one example, the Rise building that is currently being constructed, not large, but a fairly significant number of units in that building have been set aside as so-called affordable housing. But just out of curiosity, I called up the company that runs the development, and basically they decided to price those units in such a way as to basically meet the bare minimum requirement. So that means that units that they are actually marketing to people who have very little to pay are basically being marketed in such a way as to extract as much money from those people as possible. The cheapest unit in that building is $771 a month for a one-bedroom apartment for somebody who is supposedly only making 80% of the area median income. And so if you do the rough calculation, that's exactly 30%, $771 a month is exactly 30%, or the housing burden threshold, for someone making 80% of the area median income, meaning that if you make even a penny less than roughly $44,000 a year, you are housing burdened from the get-go in an affordable housing unit. And so what I find distressing about this is that, and I've asked various local officials about this on several occasions, to what extent oversight is actually being performed over these things. Because the thing is, I don't doubt the council's commitment to actually providing affordable housing for the community, but I'm wondering, does city council actually know what they're getting? Because the thing is, there are a number of other things that city council is planning on doing, land banking and so forth, but there are also then a lot of contradictory behaviors that the city takes as well. So for example, what's to prevent the city from then selling that land off later? I mean, the Rise development is a good example of this. Also, the Chauncey that is, I guess, it's over there, I guess. Both of those developments were made possible by land that the city sold to those developers. And so my colleagues and I are curious as to what guarantees the city will actually make that the various concessions that it gets from developers or the plans that it has for affordable housing will actually meet the needs that the city has. Right now on the open market, there is no housing for someone making minimum wage. If you make minimum wage in Iowa City, you basically can't get a housing unit of your own. It's not possible because you would have to find something that's roughly $330 a month. There's hardly anything in the $400 and $500 range, and what exists is basically only for seniors. And the thing is, seniors are a very important part of the population as well. However, there's a sense that I get, and that my colleagues get as well, that I don't know. I wonder if we put this proposal together, we submit it to council, and it gets approved, and it goes, what guarantee do we have that it will actually be implemented correctly? Because I see a lot of worrisome past behavior that I just can't rationalize. And so I thank you for letting me once again bloviate on this. I apologize for the strident tone, but I think this needs to be taken really seriously, and I just wanted to bring it up again. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Anyone else? Hi, Joel.
Hi, Jim. My name is Joel Gilbertson White, and I live here in Iowa City. And this still does this thing. And this sign is now kind of faded, so I'm bringing it up closer so it's easier to see. And the words Black Lives Matter, this has been posted at my house since Ferguson. And I was having a conversation with one of my black friends who said that these words are an empty platitude. They're an empty assertion unless we can do something to really enforce that they matter. And that is one of the reasons that I'm supporting the message from Johnson County Interfaith Cluster and the Black Voices Project. And I know I'm very glad that some of you actually were out on Friday, on Tuesday, on Thursday of last week. And I want to encourage you. I mean, I'm looking here and it's like, wow, we have actually built a city council that we wanted, that can do this. And so I'm so grateful for that, and I'm seeing you all to have the potential for that. That really, in order to make these words actually come to life, each of the people in this room, with whatever power we have, combined with the power that we have given you, which is budget and laws, I'm asking you to have a no-tolerance policy for all of the bad things that are happening with the graffiti and the flyers. And in addition, what this gentleman here was saying about the housing, he may have said that's a mundane issue, but when we talk about housing, when we talk about busing, when we talk about jobs, and when we talk about schools and the whole wide assortment, they all fit together. And I want to encourage you, stay strong, keep going constantly to make this completely true. I have more things to say, but I didn't write them down, so I'm going to repaint this so that it's easier to see.
All right. Anyone else? I'd like to take the opportunity to thank everybody who's come to speak about this particular topic. It's really important for us. It's important for the people of Iowa City. And I'd like to read to you a statement that I read at the start of our last meeting, just so that you know what we said right at the start of that meeting. This is from last week, or last meeting. Last week, a racist flyer was distributed throughout the Weatherby Park neighborhood. Unlike what the neo-Nazi distributors of that flyer apparently think, we, the people of Iowa City, are not of one race, nor do we want to be. On behalf of the people of Iowa City, I say we strongly reject any efforts to propagate white supremacist beliefs and actions. Such efforts are completely antithetical to our belief in the value of living in a diverse and inclusive community. And I can tell you, your council, the city manager, The chief of police and our staff are completely committed to making sure that this is a safe and welcoming place for everybody, all the residents of this community, regardless of color and so on. So we're on the same side is the bottom line that I want to convey to you. Thank you for coming and sharing your strong views. We understand why you're feeling what you're feeling. Okay, I'm assuming nobody else wants to address us in community comment? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the boring and mundane parts of our meeting. Okay, so we can move on to item 6, planning and zoning matters. Item 6A, rezoning First and Muscatine for come and go and hospice. This is an ordinance conditionally rezoning approximately 0.5 acres of property located at 1010 South First Avenue from low-density single-family residential, RS5, to community commercial, CC2, 1022 South First Avenue from low-density single-family, RS5, to community office, CO1, and a portion of 1025 Wade Street from commercial office, CO1, to community commercial, CC2. Before I open the public hearing, I want to know if anybody needs to make ex parte disclosures. Seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. Hi, Bob.
Bob Miklow, Department of Neighborhood and Development Services. The purpose of this rezoning is to allow the redevelopment of the existing come and go at First and Muscatine Avenue, as well as the adjacent BP gas station into one new convenience store and gas station. The proposal includes adding a residential lot to the community commercial zone to allow that to become part of the come and go site. So this property at 1010 First Avenue would be rezoned from residential to community commercial. A second single-family lot at 1022 would be rezoned from residential to office. And the reason for that is a portion of the hospice, Iowa City Hospice parking lot would also be added to the come and go site. So the idea is that the parking that would be displaced for Iowa City Hospice would be moved to this current residential property. This area is located within the Towncrest urban renewal area and also the Towncrest Design Review District. And therefore, the proposed convenience store will require a special exception to be approved by the Board of Adjustment and will also require compliance with the Towncrest design plan. The comprehensive plan does encourage the redevelopment of this area for a more walkable, mixed-use type of development. One of the goals for the area is to improve traffic flow by limiting the number of curb cuts. And with this proposal, 2 curb cuts on Muscatine Avenue will be combined into one, and then 3 curb cuts on First Avenue will be combined into one. So overall, the number of curb cuts will be reduced in this area, in improving walkability. The proposal will also improve the sidewalk situation in that currently the sidewalk is right on the curb. With this proposal, there will be a parkway or a landscape parkway and then the sidewalk. This is a site plan showing the proposed development with the convenience store right at the corner up against First Avenue and Muscatine. The gas station portion, or the pumps, would be interior to the lot and away from the residential, which is to the southwest. So in a way, the building would be shielding the residential neighborhood from the canopy and the associated effects from that. The Towncrest design plan does have some building design requirements in terms of the facades of the building adjacent to the street, and those will need to be adhered to as part of the special exception process. To also help make the development compatible with the existing residential in the neighborhood, the plan includes extensive landscaping of the parking lot. Here's an illustration of the proposed convenience store. This would be from Muscatine Avenue looking to the west, with the, as I noted, the canopy on the eastern part of the property, the commercial convenience store on the western part. This is looking from the intersection of Muscatine and First Avenue back to the southeast, this being First Avenue, which would have the improved sidewalk, this being Muscatine. Both the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff have recommended approval of the rezoning, but at this point, staff is recommending that the public hearing be continued. We currently don't have a signed conditional zoning agreement, and we are working out the legal description between the various zones and the need to plat the property to comply with the new configuration of the zones. Be happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, so in a minute, I'll ask for a motion to continue the public hearing, but does anybody have questions for Bob?
So we'll lose one residential house and we'll replace it with a parking lot. Am I understanding that correctly?
There'd actually be two residents.
Two residents in a parking lot. Okay. Are we going to have time to discuss this, or?
Well, what do you mean time to discuss it? How do you mean that?
The merits, if we continue the hearing, will we have an opportunity to discuss it, or?
Tonight, right now?
Yeah. Okay.
We can discuss it, can we, or not? I don't know. We can't.
Yeah, you can talk about it. I mean, if you continue the public hearing, you don't want to reach any conclusions.
Okay. Yeah, and don't stay you're opposed or whatever. Yeah.
You can certainly ask questions or.
Okay.
He'd mentioned the residential, but I believe in the notes from P&Z, it's eliminating one gas station. There were two gas stations, and now it's going to be just one gas station.
That's correct.
Are there any design guidelines? What concerns me about this, and this is a question, is that when you look at it from the corner, it's essentially you're looking at a wall. I know that there's some windows, but it doesn't look very permeable to me, and it doesn't look very, that's consistent with our design guidelines for that particular district?
This particular plan is not. There are fairly extensive design guidelines in the Towncrest overlay. One of those guidelines is that 50% of a street-facing wall has to be glass or display windows. This particular drawing doesn't meet that. We will work with the applicant through the special exception process to bring this up to the code standards.
That wall he's talking about, that's along First Avenue?
This wall, this represents the wall on First Avenue, and that would have display windows and an entrance. I don't believe the entrance would be open to the public.
Right, similar to the one on Riverside Drive.
Right.
So people could look at the one on Riverside Drive, and that's what that would resemble.
Yes, and then this would have retail windows on it, but the code will require additional windows or other features on this north side of the building.
So I would, concur with some of Rockney's questions. This is, I think, right next to my neighborhood. I use that come and go a lot. And so I have some considerable concerns about the aesthetic appeal in this particular location. I think about the come and go gas stations that have gone up, not only in this community, but also Coralville as well. I feel differently about the one on Riverside. I feel like that's more in line with the level of traffic and other things. This is a different part of the neighborhood. So, I mean, I'm going to wait to hear more information from, your conversation. The wall was, a glaring piece that I wanted to bring up, but I'm glad you're saying that the drawing doesn't meet the specifications that you're working on. But I have a lot of questions. And so I'll be interested to hear possibly what changes. While I do think a lot of the questions or comments were made during the planning and zoning meeting. Talked about some of these issues. Again, I think I'm appreciative of the fact that it's going to public hearing because I'm sure I'm going to hear a lot about this.
Bob, on the pedestrian walkability factor, we're introducing a setback on the sidewalk along First Avenue. Is the curb at the corner being reconstructed as a part of this project? The actual radius at the curb return where you transition from
Yes,
First?
this will need to be reconstructed on Muscatine and as well as First Avenue.
So are the geometries of the intersection changing then? Are we looking at, in other words, reducing crossing distances for pedestrians?
I don't believe they would be changing here.
And why we are continuing the public hearing to hear from more people, or?
We this includes a conditional zoning agreement. The conditional zoning agreement basically specifies that they will adhere to this enhanced landscaping shown on this plan. That agreement isn't finalized, so we would like the hearing continued. And of course, you can hear from additional residents, interested parties at your next meeting as well.
Monsignor, the Iowa Code doesn't let us close the public hearing until we have that signed, the condition
the
signed.
sign. All right.
And there's
Okay,
also
good to
some
know.
replatting that has to be done because we've got a zoning boundary that crosses a lot.
Okay, that's the main issue on this, yeah, okay.
Bob, I noticed also that the commissioners raised questions about the landscaping. There's S3 and S2 types of landscaping involved. And at least one of the commissioners pointed to the Benton and Riverside come and go as having somehow inadequate landscaping, just like they haven't done it as well as they ought to do it. Do you have any sense about what they're actually going to do and how that will turn out?
In this particular, that was something that was discussed at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the desire to have more landscaping on the First Avenue side to help address the appearance of that wall. So that is something that we will work with the applicant on during the condition or the special exception process.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for Bob? Thank you. Would anybody else like to address this topic during the public hearing? All right, seeing no one, could I have a motion to continue the hearing to February 20th?
So moved.
Oh, no, we don't. Well, that's right. It's moved by Botchway, seconded by? Seconded by Saleh. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, could I have a motion to defer first consideration to February 20th?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Botchway. I know you said something, but I don't know. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm saying nay.
Oh, nay?
Yeah.
All right, motion carries, I guess, 6-1. Okay, we can move to item 6B. Annexation, Herbert Hoover Highway. This is a resolution for a voluntary annexation of approximately 8.62 acres of property located at 4643 Herbert Hoover Highway Southeast. Again, I need to ask whether anybody needs to disclose any ex parte conversations. Yeah, none. So I'm going to open the public hearing.
I'm going to address or cover this as well as the rezoning, which is the following item on the agenda as well, because they're related.
Hey, Bob, 1 second. So I do have, I was making sure it was the right project. Sorry about that. So I do have ex parte communications.
Oh, okay.
I think it was sitting down. I mean, it's been a long time now. I sat down with Hy-Vee with this particular group about this proposal. I talked to them about.
Yeah.
At Hy-Vee.
Yeah.
Oh, it was at Hy-Vee.
Oh, Ed Hunt.
Yeah, at Hy-Vee. Sorry, it was just. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I did too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that I see them out in the audience.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure it was the right one.
Me too.
It was about, just talking about the project. I think probably most of the stuff I said, it was my desire for affordable housing, my interest in, what could potentially be there. I think there was a conversation about senior housing and how I thought that was important for this community. I don't necessarily see it in this section of the community as well. And I'll be honest with you, I can't remember all the things, but those were the gist of what I was saying.
Ditto.
I feel bad that I didn't remember everything, so I apologize. But it was more along those lines as far as some of the things I brought up before in city council meetings around affordable housing, senior housing, those type of things.
Okay, but you didn't commit yourself in any way.
No. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, no.
No, I would say it was the same, just it was getting information on the project, hearing what they were planning, getting an idea of the layout on the property, as well as the design of the buildings, affordability, senior housing, et cetera. It's
Same for me.
been a number of weeks ago, and I'd forgotten to
Wow. It's a memory refresher right here. Okay, Bob, where were we?
Well, this proposal includes the annexation of roughly 8 acres on the south side of Herbert Hoover Highway, just east of the Iowa City Care Center and the Old Town Village commercial area. As you can see from the map, it is adjacent to the east boundary of Iowa City, and then the boundary picks up again, and it's to the west of, in this area, the west boundary. We would anticipate at some point in the future additional lands will be annexed into the city. In addition to being annexed, the proposal is to zone the northern part of the property, about 5.5 acres, to interim development multifamily. And then the southern portion, which contains an existing residence, to interim development single family. The interim development zone is intended for areas where we don't have adequate infrastructure for urban development. And in this case, we're working with the applicant to identify ways to get water and sewer service to this property. Once there's a clear plan for provision of that infrastructure, we would anticipate that this would come back to you as a rezoning, likely multifamily on the northern portion and single family on the southern portion. But at this time, the interim development or zoning would not allow development. It's basically a holding zone that allows agricultural uses and very limited residential. And there's already one residence on the property, so it would not allow an additional residence. This proposal clearly meets our annexation policy, being right adjacent to the city. So at this point, both staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission have recommended approval. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
I guess I'm thinking about one thing, but it doesn't need to be a question directed at you. One of our affordable housing action items is to consider the possibility of altering our annexation standards whenever residential development is involved, and possibly to incorporate affordable housing into that, into the requirements for voluntary annexations. But we have not seen the proposal yet from the staff, and therefore we have to operate under the existing code. So much as we might want to sort of insist that affordable housing be included in this, we don't have any legal right to do that. At least that's the way I understand it. Bob, do you think I was pretty close to the facts on that, as best you can tell?
I would say Eleanor would be the person to answer that question.
Good point. All right.
That's been the plan, is to amend the annexation part of the comprehensive plan to provide for consideration of affordable housing.
Yeah.
You have that on your pending list, so we're ready to have that discussion. I imagine as soon as you get through strategic planning, we'd probably take that up. And in this case, we felt comfortable bringing in the annexation because we know that the applicant currently has a LIHTC project before the state now, low-income housing tax credit. So we know that what their first preference is and what their intention is. That project has been supported by the Johnson County Housing Trust Fund as well. So there's local support behind that. Some of the Iowa City dollars that you all have allocated have enabled the trust fund to be able to fund and support that application. So although the policy has not been amended, we felt that at least the intent here of the applicant is to secure an affordable housing project on the site. We felt it was worth the risk. Certainly, if they're not funded, that's a risk. We just have to accept that as a risk that you could annex this property and they wouldn't be funded, and some other use that would not have an affordable requirement could come in. But again, staff felt comfortable knowing the intent of the applicant.
All right. Would anybody else like to address this topic before I close the public hearing? Oh, hello.
I'm Megan Carr. I work with Sand Development, and we represent IC Housing Group, which is the applicant for the annexation. As the city manager indicated, we do have a LIHTC development, 36 unit on a portion of the northern property. Right now we have submitted its family housing. 32 of the 36 units would be tax credit units at or below 60% area median income. The other 4 units would be market rate. It's the nature of the scoring system with IFA. And so I don't know the exact numbers, but there'd be a portion at 30%, a portion at 40%, and then some at 60%. A mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The plan would be to have a community room on site. There would be a on-site playground. Trying to think of some of the other amenities. We do universal design in all of our units, so they all can be adaptable for handicap needs. All of the units have full bathrooms, washer and dryer in unit. Each unit will have a storage room not less than 20 square feet inside the unit to be utilized for whatever storage residents need. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have about our team. This will be, right now we just opened a project in Coralville called Coral Ridge Apartments. It's on the Old Lantern Park Nursing Home site. That's 56 units of senior LIHTC development. We also own a building in Cedar Rapids, Kingston Village. It's just off the interstate. That's 64 units of family housing. I think we have 35 low-income housing tax credit communities throughout Iowa and Minnesota. So we're very familiar with this process. And one of the goals of our group that represents IC Housing Group is to further affordable housing. So we hope that we're selected in this upcoming round. And certainly as annexation, without that, it would not be possible to be selected this round.
Thank you, Megan. I'd like to ask you a question. I want you to repeat for people like me who are typing notes and stuff.
Sorry.
Yeah, could you please repeat the number of units that you're picturing would be in this project, and how many of them would be low-income housing tax credit units, et cetera? I mean, that core piece.
Yes. So there are, in the first phase, which is the northwest portion of the site, is 36 units of family housing, and that's what's been submitted to Iowa Finance Authority. 32 of those 36 units are at or below 60% area median income. And then they're a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units geared towards family housing. And I apologize because it's just the annexation. I didn't bring all of the numbers with me, so I promise when I come back for if this goes through and moves forward and we're selected, when we come back for more details, I'll provide the exact rent levels and all of the mixed numbers. So
great. And that was for the Phase 1, which,
Yeah, Phase 1, which is the northwest portion, and then the northeast portion. So our IC Housing Group, our group is just buying the northern portion from the current owners. We have it under contract, and so we would look to do 2 different phases here.
okay, great. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Megan, you said you submit the application for the Iowa Finance Housing, something like that, for the tax credit. Okay, is this something like guaranteed, you think?
There's no guarantee. We don't find out until the board meeting is March 14th. So we're not allowed to have any communication unless we're asked a question specifically regarding this project. We can answer those questions, but we're not allowed to have any other communication with IFA regarding those.
Do you have any another plan if, say, you cannot use the tax credit for building the Series 6 family housing? Do you have another plan for affordable housing?
Yes. So we are hoping, we've had very open conversation with the sellers that if we're not selected this round, we'd like the opportunity to extend our purchase agreement and potentially go in for another round of funding next year. So I don't know that they'll be agreeable to that or not, and we'll have discussions with our group on what our next steps would be if we choose to close in the land and then move forward on something else. But we have done that in other instances where we're not funded the first round, and our seller will allow us to extend for a year, and then we are hopefully funded the next round. And applications are just once a year. So they go, they're due usually in November timeframe, and then we find out in March. And this year is actually really early. Usually it's the end of March. This year their March meeting is March 14th.
And the Series 6 housing will be done on Phase 1 of the project, or?
I'm sorry, what was the first part of the question?
I said it will be done on the Phase 1 of the project, or later on? Which one, like the timeline, I mean?
Oh, so Phase 1 is the northwest portion, and that's 36 units. That's the application we have in right now. And then Phase 2, if we're selected on Phase 1, we'd look to probably go back for more low-income housing tax credits on Phase 2 of the site. So we're looking at potentially senior, but could also be family, depending on. This is it's a tight site with the zoning requirements here on number of units. Like, they can all fit, but we can't necessarily maximize. So seniors get a 25% bonus on the site. So
25, okay.
That would be something else the city could look at, if I can throw that in, a bonus of density for affordable housing.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Megan? Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Megan, I'm sorry. Are you guys doing like mixed income unit for the Series 6, or all of them that's in one place, or how it will look like?
Yeah, so it's one building, but it'll be a mix of 30%, 40%, 60%, and market rate. And that'll be mixed between 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and all of the units will be identical, so there'll be no differentiating between the different rent levels.
Sure, thanks.
Yeah.
Anybody else like to address this topic? Okay, seeing no one, I want to remind you that the commission voted 5-0 in favor of annexation. So are you inclined to vote in accord with the commission's recommendation? Okay, good. I'm going to close the public hearing. Could I have a motion, please?
Move the resolution.
Moved by Mims, second by Saleh. Discussion.
So I want to apologize for not remembering, because it was literally like I was in between meetings and I had to fly in there for like 5 to 7 minutes and fly out. But this was a lot of what was said before kind of jogged my memory, so I appreciate you coming up. I'm definitely supportive of this annexation and just interested in. I think I may mention some concern about transportation and the bus routes out there. I think that was a question I had. But in general, I'm very supportive of moving forward in this particular recommendation for all the things that you've already articulated. I don't want to just repeat them.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Saleh?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Botchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. All right, item 6C, rezoning Herbert Hoover Highway. This is an ordinance rezoning approximately 8.62 acres of property from county commercial C, and county multifamily residential, RMF, to interim development multifamily residential, IDRM, zone for 5.86 acres, and interim development single family for 2.76 acres, located at 4643 Herbert Hoover Highway Southeast. Any disclosures?
You can just incorporate the disclosures from the last time into this.
All right.
Sufficient.
So done. Oh, that's not a sentence. I'm going to open the public hearing. Anyone? Megan?
Yeah, I was just going to say one more thing. So the main reason why, like Bob mentioned, that we're going for interim development here is we haven't figured out a lot of the utilities yet. So that if you're curious on, I know he mentioned it, but I wanted to kind of reiterate.
You're referring to water and sewer?
Yeah, and so we haven't done a lot of that analysis and the demand required and what infrastructure would need to be potentially upgraded. So once we're selected, our hope would be to start working through that process with our engineers and the city staff, and then come back, in summertime or so, to kind of review, what we're looking at doing here and what's needed. So I just wanted to reiterate.
Megan, I understand that you or agents of the developer held a good neighbor meeting.
We did, yep.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we had two neighbors show up, and both of them, one was located to the south of the site and the other was located a little bit further to the east, both within county limits. They both one indicated he was having some issues with water flow on a different development and was concerned about that, and I indicated that if we move forward and as we move forward, that he can contact me or our on-site construction team with any kind of water issues. We obviously follow a SWIP plan and whatnot, but we did talk a little bit about that. And then the neighbor further to the east spoke about, I think she has some rezoning that's going through the county right now or adding additional homes to that area. And so just more curious on what we were planning to do with the site. So.
Great, thank you.
Summarize it pretty accurately? Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Would anybody else like to address this topic? All right, seeing no one, again, the commission recommended 5-0 in favor of approval. Are you inclined to vote inconsistently with that? Okay. I said consistently with that, just to be clear. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Could I have a motion, please?
Move first consideration.
Second.
Moved by Thomas, seconded by Botchway. Discussion.
I guess I'd just like to briefly follow up on what Kingsley had said. What I love so much, I know we have some details to work out with this project, what I love about this, we've had a lot of discussions about making sure that every part of the community has the opportunity for affordable housing and that we have truly mixed income neighborhoods. That's much easier said than actually done. And so what's so exciting about this particular project is that we're actually sort of following through. We have a good responsible developer that's reached out to the neighbor, and it seems like it's going to be a great project. So it's just nice to see that vision actually achieved.
Anyone else?
I had some concerns about it when I first was reading about it, but the more I've heard and the more I see and can visualize it, it sounds like a very good project and very worthwhile.
Of course, I love the Series 6 unit with the tax credit, and I encourage all the developers to be just like you set the example, and some other developer can do the same thing.
No further discussion? Roll call, please.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Botchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Sully?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. All right, we're going to turn to item 6B. Rezoning 703 to 709 South Dubuque Street, 2 riverfront crossings. This is an ordinance conditionally rezoning approximately .48 acres of property from intensive commercial CI1 zone to riverfront crossing central crossing subdistrict RFCCX zone located at 703, 705, and 709 South Dubuque Street. This is second consideration, but the applicant has requested expedited action.
I move that the rule requiring that ordinances must be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed be suspended, that the second consideration and vote be waived, and that the ordinance be voted on for final passage at this time.
Moved by Mims,
Second.
second by Saleh. Discussion. I should, before proceeding any farther, I should ask if anybody needs to make ex parte disclosures. I don't see any. Okay, discussion. This is on the application for expedited action. And Mazahir, you haven't gone through this before, but either the staff or the applicant can request expedited action, which condenses two
vote in one.
and 2 votes into one. They can only do it after the first reading has already been voted on. So then later on you can combine the second and third. We don't have to do it. So a kind of question one might normally ask is something like, so why does the applicant want to have expedited action? The answer is usually pretty straightforward, but I'll ask that question. So Jeff or Bob or, yeah, there you are, Bob.
They've indicated to us that they would like to take advantage of the construction season to get this started earlier so that it can be finished and rented earlier.
Yeah, thank you. Maz, that's almost always the answer. So,
Okay.
Okay, so any further discussion about this? I guess I don't see any reason to object. I doubt that we're going to end up opposing the development. We discussed it pretty thoroughly last time, so I'm going to support it. Okay, no further discussion. Roll call, please.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Batchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Salih?
Yes.
Taylor?
No.
All right, motion carries 6-1. What?
I move the ordinance be finally adopted at this time.
Second.
All right, so moved by Mims, seconded by Botchway. Discussion. This is not my ideal thing. Last time I said something about the Station Plaza. I really don't like the idea of eliminating the possibility of having it, especially since there's renewed interest in the Crandick line in one way or another. I also am concerned about the importance of not confounding the idea of having usable open space, privately owned usable open space, not confounding that with public space that's open to the public and acts as pretty much a pocket park for the neighborhood. They're not the same thing. But it seems to me what we're really looking at here is a choice between development that is consistent with existing CI1 zoning or redevelopment consistent with the RFC CX zoning. So I prefer the latter. But I do think what I see is the need to revisit the 2013 Riverfront Crossings Plan at some point in the next couple years, because we're seeing development and things have changed from when the plan was first developed. So we should probably take a look at it, but we can't do it right away.
Yeah, I would support that, Jim.
Yeah. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Throgmorton?
Yes?
Batchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Salih?
Yes.
Taylor?
No.
Thomas?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-1. Taylor in the negative, as was the case previously. Could I have a motion to accept correspondence, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Botchway, seconded by Memsaleh. That's a joke. Saleh.
Kelly doesn't write
Yeah. Okay, so we all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6E, rezoning sensitive areas plan for Lincoln School. This is an ordinance rezoning approximately 3.6 acres of property from Neighborhood Public, P1, to Planned Development Overlay Neighborhood Public, OPD, P1 zone, located at 300 Teeters Court. This is pass and adopt. I need to ask if there are any disclosures that need to be made.
No, but as I said before, I'll be recusing
You'll
myself.
recuse yourself
I don't know
from
anything
this.
about this project, but
Just stay
don't
there,
want to
just sit and don't talk. Okay, so could I have a motion to pass and adopt, please?
Staff is asking that this be deferred to your next meeting. We received an updated plan just today, and we need an opportunity to review that.
Okay.
We don't anticipate any issues, but we do need to look at that plan.
Okay, got it. Okay, so disregard what I just said. Could I have a motion to defer to February the
20th.
February the 20th, right?
So moved.
Moved by Taylor, second by Mims. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Just a
Sorry.
voice vote.
Yeah, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 7, Riverfront Crossings Park Phase 3. This is a resolution approving plans, specifications, form of agreement, and estimate of cost for the construction of the Riverfront Crossings Park Phase 3 project, establishing amount of bid security to accompany each bid, directing city clerk to post notice to bidders, and fixing time and place for receipt of bids. I'll open the public hearing. Good evening, Julie. Good evening again.
Hi. Give me a second. Okay, Phase 3, Riverfront Crossings, coming together very quickly. If you've been out in the park area, the trail's open, so the public's welcome to walk through the park even as it's under construction. You've seen this drawing lots of times before, the master plan for the entire site. I'm going to talk more specifically about Phase 3, which is what's going out to bid right now. It includes 2 shelter combination restroom facilities, one of them here by the event area, and one of them over here off the parking lot, kind of closer to the nature play area. Here on the actual photo taken towards the end of November, one restroom here, one restroom here in this location. This is a rendering of the restroom shelter combination. Individual stall restrooms, unisex on each one. Package also includes lighting throughout the park, so this shows the different placement of the lighting throughout. And there's 3 different primary types of lighting that you'll see. This is kind of the medium style light, which will be along the trail along the western side of the park. This is kind of the shorter, smaller level lighting that will be on the interior trails within the park. And then we have kind of larger street lighting towards the Kirkwood side in the main entrance and parking area of the park. The other thing included in Phase 3 is signage throughout, directional signage and smaller entrances signage. I want to mention, though, that the main entrance sign, similar to what you might see down at Terry Trueblood Park, has not yet been designed and is not included in this package. The sign package follows the park master plan specifications. You'll see these at a couple different entrances through the park, along with maps and directional. It's a large enough park that we want to give people a clear direction on how to get to the different parts of it, and then smaller blade-like directional signs throughout. Answer any questions?
I'd like to ask you a question about lighting. Could you go back to the last, I don't know, exterior light that? Yeah. I'm just going on what I see here, but I think it's really crucial that lighting focus downward, not out.
Yeah, and it definitely does. These are
This
all
one definitely does?
very energy efficient design specifically with that in mind.
Okay, good. It's crucial for a new park. Any other questions for Julie?
This is somewhat.
Go ahead.
Oh, this is somewhat backwards because I'm already, I've been supportive of prior phases. And I know that I'm not necessarily, I'm in the minority on council when we talk about walking and car usage. I know that, Susan may ride her bike and Jim and John will walk and whatever the case may be. But for us, more vehicular inclined, have we thought about parking? How that's going to be affected, especially, I was probably going to either park illegally or park at the county. Have we had discussions with them as far as what that looks like?
Jeff and I actually had discussions, preliminary discussions with the county this week. We'll be going to talk with them in a work session soon to formalize that, hopefully, so that we can have parking in the county lots during their non-business hours. There is a small parking area within the park, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that. Didn't know about the conversation. Yeah.
Wasn't there going to be a community garden? Is that north of this space, or is that a different phase?
It's shown in the original master plan. It's
Okay.
not actually been shown in the more recent master plan,
Okay.
but it was up in this area that in the land that we don't own yet, so
Okay.
yet to
That's
be
what I thought.
determined.
Okay.
Other questions for Julie? I don't hear any. Thank you so much. Would anybody else like to address this topic? Oh, the wrong thing. Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. Could I have a motion?
Move resolution.
Second.
Moved by Botchway, seconded by Thomas. Discussion.
Just excited to see this park keep moving forward. It's going to be such an amenity for this community. It's going to be fantastic. And I'm glad to hear about the discussions of parking, sharing some parking with the county, the less paving and stuff we can do, and having their spots sitting empty on nights and weekends and be able to use it for community members is great.
I cannot wait to use this park. It's just wow. It's phenomenal.
Okay, so except for Kingsley, we can have and maybe some others, I don't know, but we could have a sort of a bike entourage go down there.
You go to the bike library, Kingsley. We'll get you on.
Yeah. I'm more than interested. I know that I've been seeing some of these carriages at the back of certain bikes. I'm more than willing to sit at the back of some of these. So let me know.
All right, let's see. I did that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Patchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Sully?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. Item 8, 2018 roof improvements, water treatment plant and water distribution facility. This is a resolution approving plans, specifications, form of agreement, and estimate of cost for the construction of the 2018 roof improvements, water treatment plant and water distribution facility project, establishing amount of bid security to accompany each bid, directing the city clerk to post notice to the bidders, and fixing time and place for receipt of bids. I'll open the public hearing. Would anybody care to address this topic? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing.
Move resolution.
Second.
Moved by Botchway, seconded by Mims. Discussion.
One of those mundane necessities.
Roofs?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Wow. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Sully?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes?
Patchway?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 9, amendment to Title II City Ordinances. This is an ordinance amending Title II entitled Human Rights, Chapter 1 entitled Definitions, to remove reference to, quote, masculine and, quote, feminine from the definition of gender identity and make it inclusive of non-binary expression. This is first consideration.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Botchway, seconded by Mims. Discussion.
I'm excited about us moving forward in this particular way. I think that, obviously as a progressive city, our policies should speak to, the continual conversations around gender identity. The only question I had is, this has nothing to do with what our prior conversation was around looking at boards and commissions.
No.
Okay, so
No.
I had a whole bunch of comments in relation to that, but then I read it quickly and remembered that wasn't what this was
Just
about.
an update.
Yeah.
You remember we added gender identity many, many years ago.
Right.
So,
I think for the benefit of not so much this audience, but anybody who's watching on TV. I wonder if you could briefly summarize what this ordinance does?
I actually realized that it needed updated when I was doing the stuff about gender identity for boards and commissions, and our current gender identity definition talks in binary terms, essentially male and female. This change recognizes that it's not binary and includes any number of gender identity expressions. So.
Great, thanks. Any other discussion?
I'm just like really glad that our city is like looking to the financing, like really something like those, and so we can make our city inclusive for everyone. This is really good that we are doing something like this. Yeah.
Okay, hearing no further discussion, roll call, please.
Mims? Yes. Salee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes?
Botchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 10, Happy Hollow Park Restroom and Shelter Replacement 2018. This is a resolution rejecting bids received on January the 30th, 2018 for the Happy Hollow Park Restroom and Shelter Replacement Project. Could I have a motion to approve, please? Moved by Soleil, second by Mims. Discussion.
I was so sad to see this, but I'm thinking, well, maybe third time's the charm, because this is the second time, and so maybe the third time will be a charm, and we'll get something. But it's just something I know John would like to see this too. So it's just sad to see it.
I understand that conversations will take place with the neighbors about.
Yeah, what we'd like to do, what we have recommended here is a rejection of the bids, and for us to go to the neighbors and engage them. And I think you probably need to have the first question asked is, do we still want to focus on a restroom here? The restroom is the primary driver of the cost here, and we typically don't have restrooms in neighborhood scale parks. This would be one of the few ones, but there are some unique programming elements that may provide some justification for a restroom. I think if we just rejected the bids and went back out, you're going to get the same price. These are pretty much the same prices we got last July, so the timing issue that we thought might help didn't help at all. So I think we either need to, bite the bullet and pay what it cost, or go back and redesign the project a little bit. So that's what we have laid out before you. If we do cut the restroom out, there would be some funds there to provide enhancements elsewhere in the park. So upgrading a playground structure or basketball courts or whatever else the neighbors may value there. But until we can really have that conversation with the neighbors, we really don't know how they'll feel about that. I think Councilman Thomas and I have had some other discussions, and he has a proposal that I'll let him describe, and we can talk through both those options with the council.
Yeah, I met with Jeff and Julie and staff on once the bids came back. And, the decision at that meeting was, let's defer it. Let's reject the bids, have a community meeting, and then see where we stand. I posted something on Facebook saying, that the bids came in high, we'll be having a community meeting. I didn't mention that we would, at that time, it was looking like the council, at least staff, would recommend rejecting the bids. But as I began to see the responses through social media, through Facebook, I was getting the sense that it was not going to be likely, in my view, that the neighborhood would say, oh yeah, we could live without the restroom.
That's true.
And so my feeling was, we could very well, after this community meeting, find ourselves in a situation where the project scope had not changed. And, I've talked with Jeff about this. If the project scope doesn't change, the price really doesn't change. So I can't predict with absolute certainty what will happen at that meeting, but it seemed to me what would be an approach which would give us more options and moving forward on this would be to defer a decision on the bids. They're good for 30 days, so if we have a meeting, a timely meeting with the community, with the neighborhood, we will get a reading as to what the expectations will be. Should they decide that perhaps they can live without a restroom, great. Then we can reject the bids. But if they don't, it seemed to me wise to have the ability to come back and, as a council, make a decision as to how to proceed with the project. Because the project, if the restroom is not out, as I was saying, it's we've done, I think, everything in good faith to try to reduce the cost, and it just hasn't been borne out. So if we leave open the opportunity to award the project, there will be discussions at the community meeting in terms of fundraising to help bring down the gap that we have. But it would allow us to award the project should we decide to do that and move forward on the project in a timely fashion.
Go ahead.
So that was my feeling, was at this point in time, given that we have a 30-day period in which to make a final decision on that, let's defer it, have the community meeting, and then report back following that meeting.
What percentage of the cost is the restroom?
It's substantial. I think it's, almost $100,000, I think.
It's about $100,000 at the.
Okay.
Why?
Really.
I mean, I've brought this up before. I cannot fathom why these park shelters are so expensive. You're talking more than a small house, and you don't have insulation, and I don't know if it's the roof trusses because of the way they're designed and open, but
Yeah,
I just can't fathom the cost. I just don't get it.
I agree with you, because, even like the one of them is over $100,000 more than the engineer's estimate, and how it can be that difference. And from a health standpoint, I think a restroom is important. I don't like to talk about eliminating the restroom just from
Well,
health.
this one is a little unique because of the historic neighborhood. I
Right.
wouldn't say that is the most substantial reason here, but that is part of that, the limiting factor on what we can and can't do with the design on this one. We will get an idea, overall when we see these riverfront crossing bids as well, because that also has a restroom, although quite a bit larger than this. But.
Is it possible to do it in stages? Because I was just sort of thinking, like, for example, like Hickory Hill, there's just a very nuts and bolts restroom. Just to do an updated restroom and then do anything else in the second stage. Is that possible, or am I missing that? If we're talking $100,000.
Well, if we're
current
phasing a
buildings-
project, we end up probably increasing the cost doing it in two phases.
Okay.
Because
Part
you
of
have
the
two
difficulties-
mobilizations and.
Yeah, the current shelter restroom is a combined
The combined,
facility, too,
okay.
so it's wouldn't
Be hard to do.
It would be hard to take one down and not the other part.
So Jeff, according to John's suggestion, staff and probably John, I don't know who else, would have to meet with neighbors within the next
Next week. Yeah, early next week.
Yeah, so do you think this is viable?
I think it's viable. If the neighbors are not excited about eliminating the restroom possibility and redirecting the budget funds elsewhere in the park, then I think that's just a tougher decision for the council. Do you accept the bids just knowing that they're high, and we'll have to use reserve funds or park discretionary funds to close that gap, and then we would tap those park discretionary funds, which are really intended to be used throughout the park network. So we're really funneling more money into this park at the sacrifice of some other park needs that we have. Are you willing to make that decision? The fundraising piece is intriguing, but you're also accepting bids, and so once you've accepted them, it's your responsibility whether those funds are raised or not. So it could be that we have the neighborhood meeting, they express that strong desire to keep the restroom, and you still have a tough decision in front of you. But it's worth having that conversation, I think.
Well, I'm willing to defer to the 20th of February on this. What do y'all think?
I'd agree.
I agree.
I'd agree.
I think this is and I'm willing to, I just want to make one final comment. I think this is a prime example of, and I'm not saying it's good or bad in terms of having the restroom or not, but I think it's a prime example of once the community is used to something, trying to take something away is very, very difficult. And I go back to what we're doing on the funding in terms of affordable housing, when that is in all likelihood not sustainable. I think it's going to set up for future councils an incredibly difficult situation in terms of prioritizing and potentially taking away something, whether it's the affordable housing dollars or from some other area, because it will not be sustainable going forward to do everything we're doing. And I think this is just a prime example of how, a restroom in a park, people are used to having it there, and my guess is at the community meeting, they'll probably come out very strongly wanting to continue it there.
Well, as Jeff said, there are special uses that historically take advantage of the fact that there is a restroom there. So it would change the use of the park to take it out.
I just want to reply to Susan's comments. I completely understand the high cost for the bathroom, but I always evaluate affordable housing as a need. Park and bathroom in the park as a want for the people in this community.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is taking things away.
We spend a lot of stuff in like those kind of things, but we don't think a lot about affordable housing. That's just my input.
Okay, Eleanor, can you clarify for me? We have a motion on the floor, which is to approve the motion.
You just make a motion to defer.
Right.
So
Could I have
moved.
Moved by.
Second.
So this is a motion to defer, moved by Botchway, second by Soleil. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Could I have a motion to accept correspondence?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Botchway, seconded by Mims. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 11, Second Avenue Bridge. This is a resolution authorizing acceptance of city bridge funds from the Iowa Department of Transportation and authorizing the city manager to sign the project agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Botchway, second by Soleil. Discussion. Hearing none. Could I have a roll call, please?
Salih?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Botchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 12, Public Works Facility Phase 1. This is a resolution approving, authorizing, and directing the mayor to execute and the city clerk to attest an agreement by and between the City of Iowa City and Newman Munson Architects Incorporated to provide architectural and engineering consultant services for the Public Works Facility Phase 1 project.
Move for resolution.
Second.
Moved by Botchway, second by Taylor. Discussion. Hi, Ron, you're still here.
Good evening, Ron Konecki, Public Works Director. I just wanted to just kind of remind you of what we're doing down at the Public Works site with this Phase 1 project. We will be consolidating our streets, traffic engineering, admin building with our water distribution, our refuse, and traffic engineering folks. The map shows what the overall master plan was, which is what we looked at in November of 2016. The first phase would include vehicle storage, shop space for our traffic engineering, our water distribution folks, and our street staff, and a wash bay that currently is over at the existing Public Works site. We would relocate that. We have on-site a fire training tower that will be installed, and reuse of existing warm storage that our refuse department uses, our division uses, and that would be repurposed for police and fire storage and potential evidence storage. And then we would also be looking at a potential locker room remodel on the existing admin building to allow for additional staff to be on site. What we would be looking at is basically kicking off immediately once you have the contract signed. We would be looking March through May of our schematic design and design development, moving into construction documents in June, and with construction starting in September and going through October of 2019. We will be looking at a lead project, Gold. If we can get there, Newman Munson has brought on Seawise to be their sustainability consultant as a part of the design team. So we'll be looking at that, and that'll be a driver as we move forward on the project.
Good deal. Any questions for Ron?
Hey, Ron, just on that second phase of the schematic design and design development, we're planning on, just incorporating, I know that we have gone through a deliberative process of input, but will there be a committee or team of folks that can provide additional input as we move through this particular phase as well?
That's correct. We'll go back to staff, and with the original master plan, we did design stretch with staff on site to work through those things. We'll go back to those same groups same work groups and get feedback as we move forward.
And I think you maybe already answered this earlier, but this will have a solar component to it that's being evaluated, I'm assuming, with the Seawise, or?
So it's kind of twofold right now. So we have our solar RFP that we're working through. The public works site is identified as one of those areas that we'll look at. And then we will make sure, if it's not incorporated with the project, that the roof structure, the structural members would be sized appropriately to be able to mount solar panels on the roof.
Any other questions for Ron? All right. Thanks,
Thank you.
Ron. All right, we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Botchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Selly?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 13, civil litigation. This is a resolution approving settlement of imminent litigation.
Move resolution.
Second.
Moved by Botchway, second by Saleh. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Botchway?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Selly?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 14, City Council appointment. This is a motion making 2-year City Council appointments.
So moved.
Well, it has to do with the Economic Development Committee, and the appointees would be Susan Mims, me, Jim Throgmorton, and Rockne Cole. Sarah?
So moved.
Yeah.
Second.
Moved by Botchway, second by Taylor. Is this a voice vote?
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Discussion here.
Opposed? What?
I said there is no discussion here.
Yeah, no, there should be. I'm sorry, my bad.
Okay.
Take this.
I really would, I think the Economic Development Committee is really an important committee that I believe everyone in the council would like to maybe serve in, to learn more. I know that it's 3 people only. I don't know if there is any way we can expand that committee, or if there is restriction, or I don't know, like expand the people to be on that committee.
Well, there's a risk if we expanded the committee to 5 people, those 5 people would not be able to discuss any item on the Economic Development Committee's agenda except during the Economic Development Committee meetings. And that'd be pretty weird for a 7-person council for 5 people not to be able to talk about stuff that's part of the Economic Development Committee's agenda.
It'd have to be like an odd number, that's what you're saying. It's not like 4.
Well, it should be an odd number in order to get passage of votes if there's disagreement.
Three of those
Quorum.
5 wouldn't be able to.
Say that again.
3 of those 5.
Sorry, yes, that's correct,
Wouldn't
yes.
be able to have a conversation outside.
It's the open meetings law, so that's what governs that. A quorum of any body cannot have a discussion outside of a posted meeting.
Sure, but why are those 5 can meet outside and talk about this? I guess they will talk about it during the committee meeting, not outside. Not
They
like,
could not talk about it outside, yeah.
yes.
Well, 2 or less could.
2 or less could, right.
Okay.
The other issue that you have, though, is then you basically have committee, decisions that should be made at the council level actually being made at the committee level because you have, potentially, because you have a majority of the council on the committee. And then I don't think you're going to get the same amount of public input and discussion at that committee level as you do here. The committee reviews those things, makes the recommendations, brings it to council. I think, in general, I think more of the public looks at our packets and our agendas than probably does the Economic Development Committee. I guess it doesn't make sense to me to ever have the majority of a board be on a subcommittee of that board or council.
I was just thinking, we'd probably have to post it as a council meeting and a committee meeting, because really you're having a...
You got a majority of the
Or a
council.
I mean, then you've got a majority of the council.
Is it, I'm going to ask you again, is it legal or illegal? Is that something legal to do it?
You can do it legally.
Okay, I'm proposing to make it 5 people. Or, I don't know, 4 you said cannot be for 5. As long as it's legal.
Well, that's a topic that differs from the motion that's on the floor, right? So how would I accommodate Mazahir's suggestion?
Well, you can vote on this motion, and then you can make a motion to change it to a 5-person committee, and then you can vote on whether to have 5 people on that committee, or you can withdraw the motion that's on the floor for the 3.
Is the expansion of the committee something that would need to be on the agenda, or could we do that under what's posted here as part of the agenda tonight?
Part of the
I think
discussion.
you've given appropriate notice to deal with it.
It seems to me we could vote on the motion that's on the floor, which has to do with 3 people being appointed to that committee, and then turn to your motion, see if there's a second for that, and then a vote on it. Yeah. They're doing important work.
We haven't called the question. No, we haven't voted on it yet.
Kelly says you already voted on the...
It was just a voice.
Well, we did because I blundered by not asking for
I
discussion.
think you can leave that as it is, and I think you can move on to now, if Sally wants to make a motion to
Okay.
make that a larger committee, then you can take that.
All right, so I'll just state for the record that the motion was passed with regard to appointing those 3 individuals to the committee. Okay, Maz, you have a motion you want to make, correct?
Yes.
Why don't you state it?
I would like to make a motion to expand the Economic Development Committee from 3 to 5 people.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Mims, I'm sorry, Saleh, seconded by Botchway. Discussion. I don't think it's a good idea for reasons that have already been articulated.
I agree. So do I.
It does seem it's a large committee for a group of 7 councilors.
Because I guess like people start like, if you're gonna serve on that committee for many years, how are you gonna give another people the chance to talk about this? I was trying to be on that committee, and the first thing that I guess the mayor said we have to wait for Rockne. And he thinks, why not the people who serve many years to step down so another people can serve?
It's a valid, completely valid question. I think the facts at hand are that I've been on the committee for 2 years. Rockne has been on the committee for 2 years. Susan has been on longer. I don't know exactly how long.
I guess how long, Susan B., you've been there, if I might ask?
Yeah, you're welcome to ask. I honestly don't remember if I started on there when I started on council or not. So I've been on probably 6 or 8 years.
Over 6 years?
Mm-hmm.
I think you were probably initially appointed because of your financial background.
No, I don't necessarily think it was my financial background. I think it was a strong interest in economic development and how that impacts the city overall.
I think everyone, if they need to learn, they have to do the things so they kind of have experience and learn. And if you don't think expanding the committee so people can learn is a good idea. I guess also I can just propose another thing that we can, like, we will have to have a limited serve in a certain committee. So we can have like equal opportunities.
So another thing I think, Maz, is that when a person first gets on the council, you got to kind of learn the things that happen and how the council proceeds. So 2 years on, there's no reason whatsoever why you couldn't be on that committee or anybody else up here.
Rockne didn't start it as soon as...
Sorry?
Yeah, I did.
Have Rockne started as soon as he become a council, or Rockne will be different than I?
Oh, that's...
Yeah, because we had 3 new council members, Maz.
You know, I second the motion because I'm always interested in discussion. And, you know, I do think that we need to, I'm not necessarily agreeing with the expansion of the committee. I will, however, agree of a deeper conversation about looking at how we put ourselves on committees. I'm not necessarily proposing myself, but we hold our boards and commissions to standards that we wouldn't necessarily allow for them to continue on. I don't see why we wouldn't hold ourselves to the same standard. You know, not too long ago when we were talking about the opportunity for, you know, Mayor Pro Tem, we talked about wanting to make sure that everybody on council had that opportunity. I thought that was a great point, and I think that, you know, it applies to this situation as well, to ensure that, you know, multiple people have opportunities to be on a wide range of committees. Now, I think there's some committees that I think that when we talked about it, people weren't interested in doing so. I think John was trying to get, you know, not get off a committee, but if anybody else wanted to do something else, you know, it would be available to somebody else. But I would consider the potential opportunity to talk more about our limit on committees, because I do think, you know, in fluctuation with council, it's important for everybody to get their fair shake and be able to step up and have an opportunity to learn more about, you know, the different committees that we as a council promote and, you know, get information from.
Any further discussion? So there's a motion on the floor. Roll call, please.
Voice vote.
It's a voice vote. Okay. All in favor of Maz's motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is defeated. Is it, I don't really fully understand the law here on this, what I'm going to ask about. Can a council member sit in on Economic Development Committee meetings, not speak, but just observe and learn from observing?
Even though...
And you don't have to, you know, publish an agenda for the whole council or something. Yeah.
Even though it would be a fourth council person present there. I wondered that, too.
Yeah, so there's another pathway, just being present. The Economic Development Committee, I don't know, last year met 6 times maybe, something like that. I don't know exactly, something like 6 times. So you could easily sit in on those meetings and learn what comes before the Economic Development Committee.
I would like to be part of the decision maker, and that's why I've been elected, not to come and sit and watch and not being part of it. But I'm going to put another motion on the floor to limit the time each council member serve in the Economic Development Committee.
Why just that one committee?
There's a number of committees.
Because I think this is, or any committees, okay, any committees. And even though I think this is really important committees, but any committees.
So I can't, this is weird. I can't second that right now. I'm interested in it. Is there, I can't second that. I mean, maybe somebody else is willing to second.
We could have a work session.
Yeah, that's what I'm interested in. I'd like to have more of a conversation because I'd like to look at all the different committee structures. I actually think you have a really valid point.
That's fine. I'm just putting my motion for second. Okay. No one second it? Okay.
We could have a work session discussion about it. Could you put it on the list, please? All right. Anything else? Item 15, announcement of vacancies. I have to read all this, don't I? All right, so, huh?
Do you want me to? Your voice getting tired.
No, it's not really. We have 2 vacancies to fill 5-year terms on the Airport Zoning Board of Adjustment, 1 vacancy to fill a 6-year term on the Airport Zoning Commission, 1 vacancy to fill a 5-year term on the Board of Appeals, 1 vacancy for a Jefferson Street representative to fill a 3-year term on the Historic Preservation Commission, 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term on the Senior Center Commission, and 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term on the Telecommunications Commission. Applications for these positions must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, February the 13th of this year. We also have 1 vacancy to fill a 4-year term on the Civil Service Commission. Applications for this position must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, March 13. Item 16, community comment. Is this the last one, Ben? It's not, is it?
5 more, unfortunately, for you. So good evening. Benjamin Nelson, City Liaison for the University of Iowa Student Government. So the announcements that we have tonight are the first City Council Roundtable that UISG will be hosting. We'll be featuring Councilor Salih and Mims. Unfortunately, Councilor Botchway couldn't make it due to schedule conflicts. It'll be Thursday at 6 p.m. I think keeping in cognizant of like the 3-member rule, if anybody else is free Thursday at 6 p.m. in the IMU, just kind of get in contact with me if you'd like to come. It'll be with the Governmental Relations Committee of Student Government. So again, we're emphasizing more student voices in the conversation, especially as it speaks to city relations beyond Gustav and I. We're also continuing our talks with the nighttime mayor to continue funding for that. UISG has an emphasis on making sure that the pedestrian mall it's more family friendly, it's more robust than just the bar scene. There's a number of students, a large population of the student body who does not drink, and the perception is that the Ped Mall is not for them. So we are continuing collaboration, institutionalizing these sorts of collaborations between the Campus Activities Board, UISG, and the Iowa City Downtown District. I'd also, given the inclement weather that we've had, last November, Shannon McMahon from the city got in contact with me, wondering if UISG could kind of relay city weather announcements to students. Obviously, we know students are a large part of Iowa City, but they don't always have access to the lines of communication with the city to know, when to move their car or what have you. And so we created these nice graphics, and we will, from henceforth, be pushing out any weather announcements that the city gives through our own lines of communication, so we can kind of keep everybody in line there. And my last announcement has to do with the off-campus student advisory board is making a lot of progress. There's a lack of communication between students when they move off campus. That's a majority of your time at the University of Iowa as it stands. So among the number of initiatives that we have going on, include the off-campus neighborhood liaisons, which will effectively act as kind of not resident assistants, but I think that's the closest thing conceptually that we have to help facilitate any sort of university communication that might need to take place, or in general just provide support. The city has been a great partner with that. Sits on that committee. He's given great feedback, so I'm really excited to see where we're going as we have these broader discussions of like landlord, student, and city relations moving forward. So that's all I have today, so thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ben. I don't see anybody else who wants to speak during community comment. Item 17, City Council information. Why don't we start with Pauline and move to the right?
It was great to see all the folks here talking about the things that have been going on in the city and the Black community. I've attended, I think, a lot of the others. I know Susan was there, and John was there, and Jim's been there at the town hall meeting initially, and then they had a roundtable discussion at Old Brick, and then just this last week they had another follow-up at the Dream Center talking about events that have been going on. So they're very engaged. They're really looking at things that we can work together with them on as far as really being the inclusive city that we want to be. be. So that's good to see, and it's good to see so many folks of different backgrounds at these meetings, which is good. I attended the free medical clinic open house on the 26th of last month. If folks have not ever been there, they should go see the facility. It's really a gem for Iowa City as far as the medical community. It's good. Jim and I, maybe you were going to mention this, had the honor and the pleasure of meeting with some international visitors from the International Visitor Leadership Program on the 22nd. And if you can go into Jim's Facebook page, I shared a concert. It was an impromptu concert by two of the members. They had a strong, all of them had strong interest in music and the arts. And one of them doesn't go anywhere without his violin, and he's quite accomplished violin player, and he played the violin, and he was from Bolivia, and the fellow from Vietnam, Vin, played a bamboo instrument, and it was very nice. It was really great, and it was good to hear them say how much they loved our community, which is good. And several of them said, "Oh, I would live here if I could, if that opportunity arose." So that was good to see.
Great duet.
It was wonderful. It was really wonderful. Let's see here. I think this comes before our next meeting. The Iowa City Federation of Labor has their annual chili supper on Thursday, February 15th. I know, although that's a conflict with the chamber banquet. The chamber banquet is at 5 and chili supper's at 6.
Wasn't it moved to the 22nd? I thought it was maybe moved to the 22nd.
No, they originally moved it to the 22nd, thinking it was conflicted with the DVIP fundraiser. And then they found out the DVIP fundraiser is the 22nd, and the chamber is the one that it conflicts with. So they moved it back to the 15th.
Okay.
So it's very confusing, but so Susan, you're probably going to are you going to the chamber?
I think there's 6 of us signed up for the chamber.
Okay, yeah, I was signed up originally, and I might have to go and then come back.
For the last few years is go to one and then go to the other.
Then go over to the other, so I may still do that. Let's see here. And Susan and I have a listening post on the 22nd. Looking forward to that. That'll be at Kirkwood. And I think the students, I missed that in the correspondence, you'd recommended that we have a listening post somewhere on campus. And John and I had one at the Old Capitol Town Center a year or so ago, and several students attended that because that was the same thought, is that the students would be, it's close to the campus. So that's an idea we can consider again sometime, is somewhere in that vicinity. That would be good. Otherwise, I guess that's all.
Tomorrow I'll be participating in a Ask a Lawyer radio show by one of my law school colleagues tomorrow at 12:15. Don't practice, not a lawyer, but it should be fun. On Thursday there's an African workshop. As many of you know, or maybe you don't know, my dad's from Ghana, so I have some Ghanaian heritage, and it's put on by Ghanaian not PhD students, but they are getting currently, one's getting their PhD, and others are part of the Writers' Workshop, and they'll be putting this on at the Boyd Law School at 2 o'clock, and it's just a workshop really speaking into words, the pain and suffering of the Middle Passage. There's been a lot of, I'm glad you mentioned, there's been a lot of town hall meetings and everything. Unfortunately, it's always been on Thursdays. I think I mentioned it to John, but I don't think I mentioned it to everybody else. Thursdays, I teach a class at Kirkwood, an intro to law class, and so it kind of cancels that out for 3 hours in the evening, but that's been really fun. February 15th, Mazahir and myself are participating in a news conference with the journalism program here. They spin some rapid fire questions, and so that should be fun. I'm headed to the Chamber annual banquet that evening, but I'm only going to be there for 30 minutes because I have that class, and so I'm going to be in and out. I'll just say hey and bye and grab some food. I'll be participating in an executive MBA program on February 16th around noon as well, to talk about kind of the city and the challenges, but also the benefits of living in Iowa City. February 17th, I just wanted to highlight, in the spirit of Black History Month, a group of AKAs with former teachers, Diana Henry, Barbara Hawk. They put on a program every third Saturday to really focus on STEM opportunities for students of color. You know, we have a lot of people, you know, people talk about wanting to do stuff in the community in relation to providing opportunities for youth of color, and some people just talk about it, not necessarily do it. And so just proud of, you know, former teachers, now retired, stepping up, wanting to help out in any way they can. And many of you know Diana Henry from many of the things she participates in, and Barbara Hawk as well. But just wanted to, it was on my list of things to do because I have to open the door for them every single, or every Saturday they do that event, but just wanted to add that. My last question actually was mentioned already by Pauline. I see Pastor Smith here, and I mean, he brought up some interesting points, and I was not able to participate at the meeting on Friday. I wonder from a council standpoint, you know, he laid out 4 action steps or demands. I didn't know whether or not we were going to have some type of conversation about it, or either, you know, talk to staff about moving forward or providing some type of memo in response to those demands or action steps.
That's a good question.
Sorry to put you on the spot, Jeff.
No, it's fine. We'd be happy to provide a memo outlining the steps we are taking. I think, as we mentioned on Friday, that we're on board with what they have proposed. We see the opportunity to partner with the community. So whatever the council needs us to do, we can have the chief come and address those points in person at your next meeting, or we can provide a memo just, again, outlining the steps that we're taking.
Jeff, I think it would be helpful if the chief could come to our next work session and explain for us as clearly as he can what the department is already doing with regard to the actions that the group asked us to take.
Sure.
Yeah. Is that
That's
okay?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, for like regarding the meeting that I'm gonna go, I guess the first one is gonna be a student government meeting. Susan and I will be there at Thursday from 6 to 7, and also the next day on the 9th, which is Friday, I will be speaking at the conference in New Immigrant in the hospital workplace, discovering like model of success. And this will be at the Center for Disability and Development. Everyone welcome to come and attend and see me speaking. And also on the 15th, I'll be invited to go to Ganal College, I guess, or university, I don't remember. College, right? Yeah, just to speak as a, immigrant who been elected to a council. And on the 16th, of course, chamber banquet, and I'm going with you somewhere, or coming here, I guess, to do that. I have that in my agenda. Anyway, that's what I have in the schedule. And also, I would like to really, after the people who come and spoke here, I attend like many meetings about, what's going on around this time about the racism and those like, negative flyer and comment being written on the park. I really would like the council to take like serious action on that. And I understand that you want the chief of police to come and see what the current being done, but also if he can look at the demand and let us know what they are doing and what they're gonna do, or what are capable to do in respond to their demand. And that's if it will be for the next work session will be great. That's all. Thanks.
Okey-doke.
Yeah, to follow up on that, I think it goes without saying that we condemn in the strongest possible terms what happened. We will absolutely stand with the community, and I'm sure I speak for everyone in that we will use every power that we have, rhetorical or otherwise, to work with you on addressing these issues. It's obviously a very, very serious issue that we need to address with all our power that we have. In terms of events, there's a couple different things. One involves the City of Literature, Jim, so I don't know whether I should wait until our update on City of Literature.
Roll with it.
Roll with it, okay.
Don't bring it up later.
Okay, I won't bring it. I won't say it twice. One is a really, really cool event that I did not know about before I was on the City of Literature Board, which is the One Book, Two Book Festival, which highlights outstanding young writers in our community. And I asked John Kenyon to give me a little bit more detail, so I got it right. And he is, being of the City of Literature, he wrote something for me. So this is by John Kenyon. The City of Literature asked students in grades 1 through 8 from throughout the Iowa City-Cedar Rapids corridor to submit a piece of original writing, a story, an essay, song lyrics, a poem, or even a page from a graphic story. And we work with our partners at ACT to evaluate that writing. One student from each Iowa City elementary school is selected to read at a kickoff banquet Friday, February 23rd at the Hotel Vetro, while 2 grade level winners are selected from among all of the submissions to be recognized at a special event from 1 to 3 p.m. at Sunday, February 25th at McBride Auditorium. This year, more than 800 students have submitted work for review, which I think is just phenomenal, and it just gets bigger and bigger every year. It's the thing to be a student writer in the city of Iowa City. And those events bookend a day of fun and activities on Saturday, February 24th, which will feature readings, workshops, giant book characters in costume, a book fair, and much, much more. Those events will be from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Hotel Vetro, again, Saturday, February 24th. To learn more, visit www.onebook2book.org. So fantastic event. It is so awesome. Put it on your calendar. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Royce Ann Porter, Henry Harper are doing the Soul Food Fest February 16th at 6 p.m. And don't eat like all day before you go to that event because the food is so good. And I think they're in the process of raising money as well for that. So look on Royce Ann's Facebook page and try to make a donation to that event. But it's February 16th, 6 o'clock at the Iowa City Rec Center, Robert A. Lee. And that's it.
I went to the event at Red Brick, the first of the meetings following the town hall. And I will have to say, and then I came down with the flu, which kind of threw everything off. But since then, I have to say the town hall, the events at Martin Luther King Day, and then the kind of follow-up town hall at Old Brick were really inspiring events. I'm just so moved by the engagement of the community. So that movement is, engagement is obviously ongoing. But I just have to say I've been very inspired by the effort in response, to the disturbances in the community. One of my favorite events on the 18th of January was the Historic Preservation Awards. It's just always fun to see citizens, homeowners renovate their properties. It's transformational, in the sense that you have these buildings which really just needed a little bit of love, a little bit of care, and they got good bones, so they're transformed and brought back to a state of beauty. And then lastly, I went on a walk. This was driven by Nextdoor exchanges with Manville Heights. There are concerns in the Manville Heights neighborhood with traffic and parking. Actually, there's some parking issues there driven both by commuters and special events. So they're very well organized, have a very long list of concerns they have. I've encouraged them to contact staff in moving forward with this. But I was very impressed with their perception and engagement and organization. This is not an individual or two. This is probably, I would say, a dozen people who connected on the route as we went through Manville Heights. That's it.
A few things, just some things I've been to, and then I'll mention a couple other things. A number of us, Pauline and John, was it just the three of us were at the Economic Forecast Luncheon in Cedar Rapids a couple weeks ago? Was very interesting to hear from a regional and even national perspective.
International.
Yeah, actually international. The one gentleman who's from Australia, works for John Deere, talked a lot about how they see things. Corn is huge. I mean, it's just the things he was talking about. And an interesting, I think one of the most interesting things that we have so locally that people don't realize, one of the best indicators of the economy is the trucking industry. And Mike Jardine, son of Russ, who started the company, Heartland Express, has been at this economic forecast luncheon for a number of years. And he spoke very, very positively about where the economy is going. So in spite of what the stock market did last Friday and on Monday, I don't see where it didn't look where it ended today. He was very, very positive. He said they're just loaded up. I mean, and he particularly pointed out the auto industry, the auto industry, but also like Home Depot and Lowe's, that they can't get enough trucks to fill the stores. I mean, they are just super, super busy. So it was really, really interesting, and I've been to that for a number of years and find it very informative to go to. They have some very good speakers there. There was a first round event at Merge. This is something that the downtown district does every month. They pick a different location. The idea of first round is they pay for you get a ticket for your first drink. But just a social networking gathering and it's interesting, depending on where it is, you tend to get a different crowd. So it was very interesting to see who was there at Merge. Had a great time. They had a trivia night on art, which the group that I was in, we knew nothing about. We did not win any prizes. On the 24th, had an invitation to go speak to Jeffrey Pettit's class with fourth-year medical students, talking about leadership, and so that was fun. They had a lot of great questions about getting into it and what are the hardest decisions and how do you balance, and so it was a very interesting opportunity. Went with Jeff and the mayor to Des Moines for the RAGBRAI announcement party, so that was fun to actually get the actual official selection and what that's going to mean to our community. So it's going to be an awful lot of fun. Just wanted to comment on another event that's coming up. You mentioned the 16th in the evening and said not to eat all day, but keep in mind that the Employee Service Awards luncheon is that same day from 11 to 1. So you don't have to eat Rockney.
Okay, well.
But it is the Employee Service Awards luncheon at Robert A. Lee. So you can go there twice that day.
Sounds good.
And get food. And finally, to comment on some of the events, I was at the town hall meeting at Old Brick. I was at the meeting at the Dream Center last Thursday night. And what I found really interesting, and I think the community has taken a huge step. The meeting at Old Brick was an evening of people expressing their frustration with what has been going on, not just in our community, but in general in this country. And the end of that meeting, an individual and a number of people, but one in particular kind of started the conversation of, I'm tired of going to these meetings. We need to start taking action. And that is really what happened then with the meeting on Thursday at the Dream Center. It was a very action-oriented meeting. I think they brought in a great facilitator who had done some planning with individuals ahead of time about what was going to be done. They divided people into groups. And an interesting transformation I felt in the way the facilitator presented things to the group was, I don't want to hear any more complaints. We spent last week talking about all the bad things and framing everything in a very negative perspective. What I want you to do is start things out in different ways, but one way is I wish. Okay, and she gave a number of examples. Because we've been talking a lot about education. I wish our students learned more about vocational education earlier on. I wish our students had a better understanding of what it meant to go to college and how to get through that process, et cetera. So 6, 8 groups, I don't remember how many tables we had. generated a long list of I wish ideas. And then they asked each of the groups to identify their top 2. And then those there must have been 10 tables because reported out 21 because one group couldn't count and they reported 3. They could count. They just couldn't narrow it down to 2. They reported 3 instead of 2 items. So there were 21 kind of I wish items that were reported out that went across a wide range of things. And it wasn't just related to the educational system. And then we took a break, and the core group of people looked at those and selected 4, put them up on kind of posters around the room, and then spent another amount of time for people to go around to those and start writing down some actual action steps related to each of those 4 items. And I don't know that I can remember exactly what they were. One of them was building more trust between the community and authority. That included the police department and teachers. One was getting a better cohesion of nonprofits and organizations in town, maybe even creating a summit to kind of figure out how they work together, how they're getting their funding. Mazahir and Pauline, you're both there.
I guess one of them also like how we can make the school be used for the community.
Right.
Like open the school during like evening and for the community.
I probably have the other one in my notebook somewhere, but I won't.
The financing.
Could get the flower.
Well, it's financing of the nonprofits. Yeah, it was. And there was one fourth one, but I don't remember. But to me, the key was making this step towards action, which I think was, and so they're planning on another meeting in 2 to 3 weeks then to keep this going. And okay, how can we actually move forward instead of just meeting and being upset and complaining? And I don't mean to criticize that because people have to vent, and I understand that, but there comes a time that, as people there said, we're tired of meeting. We want to see some. So I thought that was really positive. Then finally, the meeting on Friday night, where the mayor and the police chief and the city manager were there. I think everybody did an excellent job. I think there was a good exchange. I particularly want to publicly commend Jody Matherly, the chief of police. I think he did an excellent job in addressing the requests or demands, if you will, from the members there. And I think he explained some of the things that they're already doing and how they will move forward in terms of those requests or demands. I think he has done an incredible job in a little over a year that he's been here. I think he's absolutely devoted and dedicated to continuing to improve the relationship between the police department and all members of this community. I think it's very clear to me from things that have happened in the last week or two that he's made himself very, very available to people in terms of responding to those things. And I think we'll see a lot of good things happening and moving forward. So I know I was long-winded, I'm sorry, but there was a lot there.
You folks have been really busy. Yeah, it's great to hear. I'll tell you a few things. I enjoyed going to the Historic Preservation Awards ceremony. Also, I really enjoyed taking part in the Women's March on the 20th. On the 26th, John, Jeff, Ron Kanucky, and I met with Senator Joe Bolcom and 4 reps from the Iowa Department of Transportation to discuss what they're doing with regard to I-380 and in relation to the interchange as well. And we heard some really good information about van pooling, express bus service, and marketing for both of them. I mean, really promising information from them. I was glad to hear that. I had a really good lunch with Mayors John Lundell and Terry Donahue on the 31st. Some fruitful conversations with them. On the 1st, Pauline and I met with the University of Iowa's Government Relations Committee. Had a very thorough conversation with them. On the 2nd, Jeff, Ashley, Simon, and I took part in a phone conversation with our lobbyists in Des Moines. Jeff, you made a great hire there. They're really serving us well. And I agree with you about the chief. I couldn't agree more. I think he's doing a superb job. But I also want to mention that he did an outstanding job testifying before a House subcommittee earlier in the week with regard to so-called sanctuary cities. couldn't ask for a better representative of Iowa city government than Jody that night, or that day, in that subcommittee meeting. Last, this is going to be an invitation to not more than one of you. We'll find out who the one is. Pauline and I have invited about 20 parents of black youth to meet with us from 6 to 7:30 p.m. on Monday, February the 12th. The idea is for us to listen and learn from them. So Pauline and I will be there. One other council person could be there if any one of you is interested in being present, but not more than one.
I would love to, but I already have a conflict that evening.
What time?
Yeah, it's from 6 to 7:30 on Monday, the 12th.
We did phone invitations, and the people that I contacted were so excited and so enthused. I didn't get one person hang up or saying definitely no or why are you doing this. They were all very receptive, so it's going to be a great evening.
Yeah, just to be clear, it's not necessary that anybody else join us, but I just wanted to make sure it was a possibility if anybody was interested.
Definitely interested. I wish I could.
Okay, I think that's it for us council people. Jeff, Ashley.
I have two quick things.
Yeah.
One of them being, we've got the tours scheduled for facilities. We're starting at the rec center on February 9th. I sent an email, I think last week, inviting council members to participate in a tour. Julie Seidel-Johnson's going to facilitate a tour with her staff, so we're hoping to have more of our frontline staff people involved in these tours. So from this Friday, from 2 till 3 o'clock, maybe 3:30, we'll have a tour at the rec center, Robert A. Lee Rec Center, and so several of you are welcome to attend. And anybody who has a conflict, we're having a second date, so the 23rd of this month, we're also having a tour. So I was trying to gauge and see if anybody is going to participate or be able to come and join us.
What time did you say again?
Starting at 2.
When again?
This Friday. So just let me know. You guys could shoot me an email and let me know. Yes. So Friday the 9th, starting at 2 o'clock at the rec center. And then the final thing is just a fun, kind of just general community announcement. The library's been nominated for Best Library in the country. So it's a fun award through a group called Engaging Local Government Leaders. We're a member, and our library is great, so if people want to vote, it's all online voting, pretty simple, but the library's website has, so icpl.org has a link to the survey and more information about the contest on both their blog and their news items there. So we're hoping to win. Right now we're against this week, Penn State. So please go out and vote, pass the word, this week through Friday. Thanks.
Eleanor. Kelly. All right, could I have a motion to adjourn to the work session?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mem, seconded by Saleh. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned from the formal meeting.